You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, sponsored by Essentia Health.
Here, our hobbies become our work, and our work becomes our passion. But when joint pain or injuries keep us from doing what we love, it can affect our entire way of life. That's why we meet these challenges head on. Whatever your good day looks like, we'll find it together. This is Essentia Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, like nowhere else. Visit essentiahealth.org.
Hello and welcome to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, the Bulldogs hockey beat writer at the Duluth News Tribune and the Rink Live.
I'm Zach Schneider, the television voice of UMD Hockey on My Nine Sports.
And also joining us this week, we're welcoming back the voice of Bulldogs hockey on KDAL, Bruce Ciskie. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me again.
We're making you a regular on the podcast here.
I am all in favor of that.
All right. Let's take a look back at the last weekend. Bulldogs men and women were both in action. Men are coming off a pair of wins over Alaska, 5-1 on Friday, 1-0 in overtime on Saturday. The women split at the D1 in DC tournament in Washington, DC, falling to Penn State 3-2 on Friday, and then beating St. Lawrence 4-3 in overtime on Saturday. Gentlemen, just quick takeaways from this weekend's action. Zach, we'll start with you.
Well, the games we watched were the men's games in Duluth against Alaska. I guess the quick takeaway is it was probably good, not great, that you got 2 wins. You had to go to overtime on Saturday to complete the non-conference sweep, but winning's winning, even though in the pairwise that Saturday win counts for a little bit less than it would have if they had gotten it in regulation, but they were without 4 pretty regular guys. I'll throw Luke Lohheit in there as a regular guy. I mean, if he's healthy, he's going to be in the lineup. The other 3, Casey Gilling, Dominic James, and Wyatt Kaiser, are certainly maybe a little bit more on the offensive contributor portion of the ledger than Luke Lohheit. And those guys were all out on Saturday, and you got it out a 1-0 overtime win against an opponent that everybody expected you to beat. So yeah, good, not great. You get those 4 guys back in the lineup hopefully soon, maybe as soon as this weekend, and everything should be fine.
Bruce, it did kind of feel like survival mode for the Bulldogs, especially on Saturday when they were missing 4 guys, including 2 of their centermen.
Yeah, and Noah Cates back in the middle, I thought actually was one of the better players on Saturday. But yeah, I agree with Zach. They found a way to win, right? And at some point this year, they're going to have games maybe where they're at their best or close to it, and they can find a way to win because that's how the game works sometimes. So you take the wins because you can get the wins, and that's nice to have. And it's great to see Ryan Fanti keep playing well. They really needed him. I thought Saturday he made some big saves for them and kept them in that game at points where Alaska was kind of controlling the pace and the flow of the game the way that they want to play it. I thought UMD found a way to grind it out. That's a good sign. The veteran team, mature team, they found a way to win. And what I like the most is that power play that hadn't scored in consecutive games since opening weekend scored in consecutive games, missing some mainstays. That's a positive too.
Yeah, Scott Sandlin not thrilled after Saturday's game, especially. He wasn't real big on Friday's game either, but the phrase that stood out to me from him as he was kind of picking apart his team, and we all know Scott, he's a perfectionist. He'll even say he's never happy, but not every game can be a Picasso. And I definitely would say this weekend was not a Picasso for UMD, but I feel like you got to put them into perspective. They're missing 2 key guys on Friday in Casey Gilling and Wyatt Kaiser, missing both of them again on Saturday. And then on Saturday, you're also without Dominic James. You're also without Luke Lohheit. I think Luke makes a huge difference on that 4th line. I think Luke also helps add some depth to the special teams as well. I've kind of harped on the Saturday offensive struggles. Maybe it's just because I'm tired of waiting forever for a goal to be scored there. I was unhappy. I had to once again dig out my stats on 0-0 games at Amsoil Arena. I was really feeling for Fanti that he would maybe be the first goalie to have 2 shutouts at Amsoil Arena in which he doesn't get a win. But Noah Cates came through at the end there. We're going to take a short break. We'll have more with Bruce and Zach. But first, my interview with Bulldogs redshirt senior goaltender Ben Patt, who organized the Bulldogs Movember campaign last month that has raised over $10,000 for men's health issues including one that's impacting the Bulldogs this season, testicular cancer. You're listening to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
I'm McHatton.
I'm Jess Myers, and we are the co-hosts of the Rink Live podcast. We really pride ourselves on finding some unique guests and covering some of the topics of the day, not only in college hockey, but kind of across a broad spectrum.
We also talk junior hockey. We'll get some of that talk in there as well. Women's hockey, men's hockey. We try to talk to people from throughout the game and actually from all over the country.
And Mick and I are kind of OG, the Rink Live guys. We were here from the start, about 3 years ago now when things got off the ground, but we brought a fair amount of college hockey experience to this job. I went to Minnesota Duluth. I covered college hockey starting then when I was a student. I've covered the Frozen Four 28 times, and I primarily cover the Minnesota Gophers now for the Rink Live, but dabble in a little bit of everything.
And I've covered St. Cloud State hockey. Now this will be my 12th season. So please check us out on the Rink Live podcast on Mondays.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider Podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. Our guest this week, perfect timing. When I scheduled you, didn't know this was going to happen, but our guest this week, redshirt senior goaltender Ben Patt, who's going to get his first start with the Bulldogs in Marquette, Michigan this weekend when you guys take on the Wildcats. Ben, after all these years, coaches mentioned he hoped to get you in the pod last year. Then Ryan selfishly just plays out of his mind, doesn't let you in. And again, Ryan, playing ridiculously well here to start this season. He's now out with COVID protocols. Should note breakthrough cases for you guys as you're all vaccinated. A good reminder of everyone out in the world of what's going on out there. Not the situation that you'd like to get the start, but what does this mean after your fifth season here now to finally get a start for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, well, Matt, thanks for having me on. It feels great, obviously, like you said, to reiterate, not how you want it to happen, but, even talking to Ryan, we deal with the punches and we deal with the situation. So, like I had mentioned, I feel great. I'm really excited. I'm happy to finally get in there and battle for these guys, the way I know they'll battle for me this weekend. Hopefully we can go in there and get 2 wins. So,
I had this question written down, and obviously it's meaningless now, but one of the questions I was going to ask you, what would your thoughts be if you played here 5 years or 6 years or whatever it is? Who knows how many years of NCAA eligibility the NCAA will give you? What would it have meant not to play in your 5 years here if that did happen?
Yeah, I thought about that, and obviously this year it was a thought in my mind that coming back from one more year, hopefully I could get in there. But you know what? It's a lot more than hockey, and I think that's one thing that I've learned from my time here, that, wearing this Bulldog and be a part of this program, it changes you, and it can drastically change you as a person and who you are out in the community and a lot of other things away from hockey. And, there's life after hockey, and a lot of guys start to understand that as they're here and really build themselves as a person as well. So in reality, I wouldn't have been, too upset about it. Obviously, there's a part of me that loves the game and I would have loved to play, but it wouldn't have been too heartbreaking for me. But it's definitely an understatement to say I'm a lot happier now to say that I did get a few in there.
What has you confident about this weekend going into the series, starting between the pipes? What has prepared you for this moment?
Yeah, I think just preparation week in and week out. I saw myself get a lot better and improve year over year, practicing as hard as I could, taking every day to try and focus on one thing and get better. And over the last few weeks, I think I've been, practicing the best I have in my whole time here. So I'm feeling as confident as ever, seeing pucks really well. And our team's been playing unbelievable. So I'm just happy to get in there and hopefully give it a chance.
Is it going to be weird not having Ryan or Zach on the bench? The three of you for the past 2 years have been it's probably just been weird in general not having Zach on the bench here the last month. I mean, that's a tight room. What's that going to be like for you?
Yeah, it definitely has. We've missed Zach a lot. We're happy that he's doing really well, and obviously not having Ryan there will be different too. Brady's come in and done a great job, though. He's been a great support system, and helped us all out. So he'll be out there, which will be great. But yeah, it'll be a little bit different. It would have been nice to have them, but who knows? Maybe down the road we'll experience that. So.
Can't get Brant to throw on the pads here. I know he would love to throw on the pads and be on the bench this weekend. What has it been like for you working with Brant for 5 years here? I mean, people talk about him as one of the best goalie coaches in college hockey. I feel like you're leaving with a doctorate in goaltending after working with him for 5 years.
Yeah, no, he's unbelievable. He deserves all the credit he gets. and I'll actually be out with him maybe a little bit late after this podcast, so I may get a little bit of his wrath. But no, he's unbelievable. We stick to really simple ideas and really stick to the foundation of goaltending. I think that helps us. We don't overcomplicate things, and we're always working on what we think we're going to see that weekend. But again, we bring it back to basics and really make sure we're sharp. And this is the same. We were out yesterday. We'll be out again today, and we've just been talking like it's another week and preparing like we always would. So really excited for it, and we'll have a good session today.
You can tell Brant it's Welland's fault. You're doing a podcast segment with him, and it was, half hour on the greatness of Brant Nicklin out there. He's a confident goaltender. He still is this day. So the real reason, Ben, that I wanted you on this, but one, we love having you on the podcast, but two, this Movember campaign. You talk about leaving a legacy, off the ice and in the community. You guys have raised over $11,000 growing mustaches in the month of November. Or in Blake Biondi's case, sticking a mustache on his face there. I'm glad he recognizes his strengths and weaknesses, what he can and can't do. How blown away are you that the support that you guys have gotten? Obviously, when Zach coming forward with the testicular cancer, that gave the campaign a big boost, but $11,000, that's insane.
Yeah, it's a lack of words to describe how proud I am of the group. And all coming together to really, raise money for a great foundation and to get behind Zach. All the guys were on board. They all use their social media. And I had mentioned on an earlier interview, I feel like there's, part of me, and I think to leave these guys with it in their minds that we have the ability using our social media and using our platform to do some good and try and give back a little bit. And I think this was the first great example of really the power we do have to motivate and to move some people to give back to a charity and a foundation like that. So I'm super proud of the guys in this, in the room, and they've done such an amazing job. And we all feel really good about it. It was a time when, I think it brought all of us closer to a common goal away from hockey, which has been amazing. I hope we can do a lot more of it throughout the year.
You get to defend your NCHC Movember title as well. No contest last year. Not going to lie, after talking to you the last time we had you at the press conference, I immediately texted Michael Wiseman in the NCHC. He said, hey, you going to bring this back? Awesome. So I'm going to take credit for bringing the contest back. Good, what do you think of your odds on winning it again for another time? Have you looked at the competition out there?
Yeah, I saw it. I was getting tagged in it a lot over social media, so I saw it a little bit, and I think I was doing pretty well. I haven't checked it since, but yeah, it was pretty strong. I was growing it out for the whole month, and I think I got a little bit of a head start, but I think there's one or two other guys that have some pretty strong mows, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, it would be cool to win it again and go out on a win, but we'll see. Besides you, who had the best mustache on this team in Movember? Definitely Matt Anderson. I've mentioned that a few times now. I think he probably even took over mine, so he could have been in the running for the NCHC for sure. But definitely Matt Anderson. Yeah, it's impressive. Maddie's going to be graduating here. I'm pretty sure he's out of NCAA eligibility after this year. Who is best primed to take this over on the team, you think, after you leave here? It's a good question, but I think my mind goes right to Ben Almquist. He had a really good one this time around as well, and he can grow a real full beard like a middle-aged man. So he had a good one. I think he'll take it over for sure. Sad to report here, you've shaved off the mustache, going for the handlebars there. Did anyone keep their mustache? You know what? I honestly, even this morning, because it's December 1st, so the idea is kind of come December 1st, you shave it off if you hit your goal. And obviously we hit it 3 separate times, so I kept it till the end, but I think a lot of guys will shave it off. I haven't even been in the room yet this morning. I've just been taking care of the body a little bit and then doing some interviews, so I'll go see and take a look, but I'd assume majority of the guys have. Some guys like to keep it and they look good with it, but I'm sure most of them kind of were happy to get it off. Yeah, Sandy, I believe it was last week, was looking forward to you all shaving, though he did say today, that Wednesday here, that he was a fan of your mustache. Well, that's good to hear. you got coach's support there. We mentioned this is your 5th year. You had that year of the shoulder surgery, so you got the redshirt year. You technically have a 6th year of eligibility, you and Naomi Rogie. Have you thought about what you're going to do with that 6th year? That's a great question. I have a lot in with my family, and I don't think there's been a permanent decision made right now. I'm taking it day by day, as well as getting my my MBA right now. So trying to look at different opportunities in the professional world, as well as maybe playing professional hockey also when this is done. And who knows, a few starts here, see how I'm playing, and see how the year goes, as well as opportunities. But nothing set in stone yet. Just trying to take it day by day right now. Do the starts change things for you at all? Not so much, but it may just gave me the playing again, right? All of us love to play the game, and when you're not actually in there playing a little bit, your wants may tend to change, and that's just a reality. So maybe being in there again may spark something and change my path a little bit. But at the end of the day, even with those starts or without those starts, I was really just going to see how this year went and not try and stress myself too much about the end goal, and just try and enjoy myself every day, day in and day out, and then make a decision when the time comes.
I was going to say, I keep a recruiting database. Coach doesn't have any goaltenders ready to come in here. What's that conversation like with you and the coaches? There's some of your teammates. There's seniors that, have to have that conversation of whether to come back for a fifth year. Obviously, you're in a unique situation of year 6. What's that talk like with the coaches?
Yeah, it's great. They're awesome, and that's one thing that makes the program so special. I think, it just goes to show us bringing every guy that wanted to come back was a real showing of the coaches and their belief in, bringing guys up through a system and really, making them the best people they can be and bring them back. Other programs maybe didn't grant those guys the last year, and I'm sure, or the extra year, and I'm sure the conversation would be the same going in. I mean, they know what we bring to the team, whether it's on or off the ice, whatever it may be, and they'll have an honest conversation with you and never lead you astray. So it'll be a good conversation when it's there, and I think a lot of guys will probably be happy with the result if they do want to come back or if they're ready to move on. So they've always been great with that. I'm sure it'll be the same.
So you're going to have your MBA finished up, though, after this year?
That's correct. Yeah, I'll finish it in May in general management.
So what do you want to do outside of hockey? What would you like to do with your life?
Yeah, I think I'd like to spend it rather than behind an Excel spreadsheet. I like to talk to people and interact with people, but I also have a background in finance. So I thought of a few different areas in commercial banking or investment banking, somewhere in that term, but also in maybe financial sales as well. But again, that's something that every day I talk to some different mentors and some people that have gone through it and been through different careers in those areas and try and see where the best start may be. But again, that's something that's also will be decided a little later down the line.
All right. Some quick questions. So Brant, I don't get you in too much trouble here with Brant. Okay. We took questions on Twitter. Okay. One wants to know, I'm impressed someone looked this up. Okay. You were apparently 5'10" on the score sheet your freshman year. Yeah. Now you're 5'11". Did you really grow an inch in 5 years here?
Yeah, I don't know where that discrepancy was. I don't know how that changed. I can't say I grew. I may have actually shrunk an inch, or maybe they had them a little more accurate one year or the other. But I think I'm in that range, so whatever it may be, if it's on or off skates, there's always a little bit of something. Probably closer to 5'10", but maybe on skates just over a little bit of 5'11".
I was going to say, for fans, heights are always inflated on everyone until you get into like the Will Francis, Riley Tufte category there. Yeah, then those are pretty accurate there. The only other one I got, have you considered entering in any national mustache competitions, going into pro mustache contests post-hockey?
Yeah, maybe we just found out my career choice there. It's not hockey. It's not the professional world. It's professional mustache growing. No, I haven't yet. Maybe that's something I'll look into.
Question comes from Biddy. There's one apparently in Pennsylvania. Okay. Looked like the logo had Dwight Schrute as its advertisement there. So, okay, awesome. Patter, thanks for joining us on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Always a pleasure.
We're going to take another break, and then we'll have more of the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health.
Hey there, my name is Samantha Urkala, and I'm the host of the Duluth News Tribune Minute podcast. Hear the most important news of the day, including weather and sports, from Duluth, Minnesota, and from around the Northland. Join me and my fellow reporters as we take you through the local news you need to start your day. Episodes are released Monday through Friday and are available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for supporting local journalism.
Welcome back to the Bulldog Insider podcast, brought to you by Essentia Health. I'm Matt Wellens, joined by Zach Schneider. Bruce Ciskie also joins us to wrap up this week's episode. We're going to look ahead to this week's action. 2 more weekends of games here for both the Bulldogs men's and women's teams before the holiday break. We're going to start with the women because they're at Amsoil Arena this weekend against Ohio State. 6:01 p.m. game Friday, 3:01 game Saturday. You got the call both of those on My 9, right, Zach?
I do. Yep, it should be fun.
Bulldogs, after going 1-3 against the Gophers and Badgers in October with that one win over Minnesota coming in OT. They only got the OT win in DC over St. Lawrence. Guys, are these must-win games for the Bulldogs, not just where they stand in the WCHA, but in terms of making that soon-to-be expanded NCAA tournament? Is there any worries that the women are kind of digging themselves a hole yet, or do they got some time yet to make up ground if need be? Zach, we'll start with you.
kind of yes and no. They're probably must-win games if they want to stay a serious contender for the WCHA title. Ohio State has 4 games in hand on them, but they've got a pretty sizable lead in the points right now as we approach the holiday break. So certainly possible to claw your way back in it if you lose 1 or 2 of these games this weekend. But Ohio State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those aren't teams that lose to the bottom half of the league all that often. So the bigger that lead is, at the break, the harder it is going to be for UMD to get back into it. Must win games to be in the NCAA tournament. Not yet. I mean, it's going to be early December when these games are played. They still play Wisconsin, they play Minnesota, they play Ohio State again on the road. So they're not must win games to get into the tournament. Certainly they become more important if the tournament stays at 8 and isn't expanded to 11. Right now, UMD is at 12, but, I got to figure they're going to pass UConn in the pairwise. If you don't pass UConn, if you're UMD, you got bigger issues than making the NCAA tournament probably. But UConn's a team that's ahead of them right now in the pairwise. So yeah, I mean, you'd like to take 1 or 2. I think 1 or 2, you call it if you play well in both games, you don't get blown out the other one. You call it a successful weekend, but certainly they're at home. And the expectation for UMD is that you win both games when you're at home, that you sweep. So I think that's their expectation going in, even though Ohio State is number 1 in the WCHA and number 2 in the country right now.
Yeah, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but the Buckeyes have struggled in Duluth in recent memory. I might be wrong there. I know they lost twice to the Bulldogs last year. Bruce, what do you think? Are these must-win games yet? I think it maybe not against the Buckeyes because they still have another series in Columbus in the second half against them.
Boy, I tell you, I'm of the mind that when you get a team like this at home, you better get them once, especially in a situation like this. And I guess I'll stand by that. I think they have to get 1. I don't even care if it goes overtime. I think you have to find a way to get a game this weekend. Kind of reiterates that message that this is a team that expects to contend in this league. They're 1-3 against the Big 3 so far. This is the 3rd of the Big 3. I think they got to find a way to get 1 this weekend. And frankly, I think they have to get 1 next weekend too.
Yeah, they got the Gophers coming up after that. And after, just that OT win against Minnesota, they have to go to Ritter and I think at least get a win there. And then they close out December with their final 2 non-conference games against Harvard. So it's a key month, I think, for the women if they want to make the NCAA tournament. In terms of expansion, we should know for sure on December 15th, the D1 Council will make the final decision. It's already passed by the NCAA Ice Hockey Committee. It's gone through the Division I Competition Oversight Committee. Just one more NCAA bureaucracy to get that tournament to 11 teams. But I don't think you can assume just because it expands that the Bulldogs will automatically get in. The UMD men, they're still in non-conference play, hitting the road at Northern Michigan. Bruce and I will be making the trek through the UP to Marquette, hopefully avoiding any snowstorms or moose or other animals along the way there. Bruce, the men dealing with some injuries and illness. I thought minus the 3rd period on Friday against Alaska, they struggled offensively against the Nanooks. Is the cure simply just getting everyone healthy, or are these offensive struggles you feel deeper than that, Bruce?
So what I think is interesting is I ran some numbers this morning, and right now, this is a pretty small sample still, right? They played 14 games out of 36, but right now, the percentage of goals that they've scored at 5-on-5 is higher than it has been going all the way back to the middle of the last decade, at least, if not longer. It's right now they're at 77% of their goals scored at even strength. As you know, Matt, most people that are listening to this know, it gets harder and harder to score 5-on-5 as the season gets deeper and deeper. To me, the concern is the power play. I think it's a positive that they are missing a couple of key guys last weekend, 3 of them on Saturday, actually, and they still managed to score in each game. I think that's a big plus, but they've got to find a way to get some footing there because the 5-on-5 scoring has been there. They've been able to do that consistently, really, for the most part of this season. It's a good thing. But as you saw Saturday, as you've seen occasionally here, it's hard to score 5-on-5, and you need your special teams to contribute once in a while.
Bruce, bringing math to the podcast. That's why we keep bringing you back here, Bruce. Zach and I don't have time to do math.
That's fair.
Doing math. Zach, what do you think of this offense? The offense doesn't need to do much, right? Because Ryan Fanti and defensively, this team is pretty strong. Ryan Fanti's playing out of his mind. I feel like if you can get, it used to be like 3 goals. Scott Sandlin always said if you got to 3 goals during the Hunter Shepherd era. He felt good. I feel like right now, if they get 2 goals, that's enough to win right now.
Yeah, right now, I mean, the way he's playing, depending on, the opponent and the way the game goes. And, UMD's done a decent job of staying out of the box, not giving teams power plays of their own, and their kill has come on since the early part of the year. So defensively, I mean, yeah, that's not really an issue. If you score 2 or 3 goals, you would expect to win most games. If you have an outlier in there, you lose 4-3, that's just how life goes in the NCHC. But the power play, I think Bruce is right. That's a big focus. If that can get going, that's going to be huge for them. Really the biggest thing is they just need everybody pulling on the same chain. The last couple of weekends, they've had some passengers offensively, guys that you wouldn't expect to do that. You want them to go to harder areas and score a goal like Noah Cates did on Saturday night in the overtime, where, Judd and I were talking on the TV broadcast, sometimes those goals come from unexpected areas. And we thought a guy like Matt Anderson might score the winner in that game or something like that, his 2nd or 3rd goal of his career. But in the end, it was the captain, because he went to the right area. He went to the front of the net, established position, and a puck bounced off his shin guard and into the net. The more guys you can get back to doing those types of things, the harder you work, the luckier you get, to steal a really stupid quote, because luck has no correlation to work at all. But you can get lucky and you can get fortunate bounces in hockey. And, if UMD can do those things, they've got the players to do it. That's maybe the frustrating thing about the offense is, it's just, do they have the willingness to do that night in and night out?
Yeah, Scott Santillan, again, shortly after saying not every game can be a Picasso, that, we've seen this team do better. And I think that's what maybe had him frustrated after Saturday's game is he knows they can, and we've all seen it, that they can take it to another level here. But I think first they got to get healthy. I do feel like getting all those bodies back will make a huge difference. Some quick hits to close this out. Zach already kind of mentioned it, and we're going to dive into it now. I ranted about it. If you go to the Rink Live and Duluth News Tribune, my thumbs up, thumbs down, 3 stars. It's been a hot topic actually a little bit on social media here too. Overtime in college hockey, the never ending debate. Guys, should overtime wins be worth the same as a regulation win in college hockey? Right now, for those that we got to go deep dive into math here. In the pairwise, an overtime win is only worth 55% of a win. The loser still gets 45%. As I said, if you're vehemently in thumbs up, thumbs down, 3 stars, you're vehemently against participation trophies. You're probably not a fan of that 45%, bigger than the NHL's loser point that they had out. Guys, should overtime wins be worth the same as a regulation win in college hockey with the 3-on-3 OT? Zach, I'll let you start.
I didn't read your thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm very sorry, Matt.
Thanks, Zach.
But I take it.
It'd make a great bedtime story for Emmy, by the way. Kids love it.
If you wrote what I think you wrote, that a 3-on-3 overtime win should be 100% of the points in the pairwise, is that what you wrote?
Yeah. I mean, I side very much with UMD women's hockey coach Maura Kroll, who I believe that's what she wanted way back when this was being discussed. She was all for winner take all. She wanted all the points on overtime.
Now you made it tougher, because it's tougher to disagree with somebody the status of Maura Kroll, but I disagree. It's 3-on-3. It's still hockey. It's better than going straight to a shootout, but there's a significant difference to 3-on-3 hockey versus 5-on-5. It takes away a huge defensive element of the game. You really can't run the same structures that you can in a 5-on-5 game. And so I'm totally fine. Maybe I would be okay with it being like, 60-40 or 70-30, weighing it more towards the winning team in that regard. I'm fine with that, but I don't think that you can punish a team for losing in a 3-on-3 overtime completely.
Bruce, what do you think?
I got to agree, Zach. I would say 2 out of 3 to the meatloaf rule, and give the winning team in overtime 2 out of 3 points, however you want to term it. I just don't think that you can call it a legitimate win when it happens in overtime. The minus to that is you're going to see, as time goes on, some non-conference games where they do everything they can to get it to overtime so they can secure themselves at least a third of a win or whatever the math ends up being at the time, because we all know how these coaches are. They're very competitive. They're going to find every little edge that they can. And if that's one thing they can do to help themselves down the road, they're going to do it.
Yeah, Eric Lang from American International was ranting last week, I believe it was actually, about 3-on-3 OT, called it a gimmick in summer hockey, and then followed up that they've lost 4 games. They're 0-4-1, American International is, in 3-on-3 OT. And he brought up, I believe it would be a 3-4-5 record is better than 3-8-1 or something like that. Like Bruce said, coaches want to play for ties. They think it makes their record look better. I called it the same as wearing a toupee. Everyone knows what's really underneath there. You still only have 3 wins.
The 55-45 thing, it gives the coaches the option to play for overtime, right? If you make it like an 80-20, if you redistribute, and then it lessens that incentive to not try to win in regulation. And so I'm all in favor of that. But going to 100-0 seems excessive to me.
And part of me also wants to just find a way to simplify this for fans. It's so complicated for even the people who follow the game closely, let alone casual fans. College hockey, trying to figure out what is a win, what is a tie, what is a win worth. Man, it's like, I just want to see them simplify the system. That's my biggest argument. Let's just simplify it. All right. Should an overtime win in conference? I know your guys' answer to this. It was talked about in the WCHA this year, letting the winner of an overtime game get 3 points in the conference standings. Now the loser would still get a point. Should an overtime win in conference play be worth 3 points instead of 2?
No, absolutely not. Don't be sad because 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I can't back that idea.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 2 out of 3. I think then the math really gets weird at the end of the year, because then some series become worth 4 points instead of 3.
Right. Yeah. And that goes back to making things more complicated than they need to be, as if you give the winning team in overtime 3 points, give the loser 1. But then if it goes to a shootout, the winning team only gets 2 and the loser gets 1 conference play. And that's probably far too complicated than it needs to be. So keep it at 2.
All right. Tony Granato, the head coach of Wisconsin, went on a mini rant over the weekend after the Badgers and St. Lawrence tied 1-1 at the Kohl Center after overtime. Current NCAA rules say a non-conference game cannot go to a shootout. You can't even hold an exhibition one. So the Bulldogs had Noah Cates not scored in overtime, Saturday's game between UMD and Alaska at Amsoil Arena would have just ended. No shootout. Tony Granato said it's time for the NCAA to wake up, that you got to allow shootouts even in non-conference games. Guys, even though they don't mean anything, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with shootouts not meaning anything in the pairwise. Should non-conference games be allowed to go to a shootout, even though the result is meaningless? Zach?
Yeah, they should let them do whatever they want to satisfy the crowd that paid money to come watch a game. And once the result is over with in the eyes of the NCAA, which I think we all agree is fine after the 3-on-3, it's a tie and we move on. They should let them have an archery competition. If that's what the 2 teams want to do, then let them decide a winner. But they're just asking to play more hockey, and practice a thing that might become valuable to them down the road in their conference. So yeah, that should absolutely be allowed.
A sell-off? Is that what you're talking, Zach?
Whatever they want to do. They should. People paid good money to come watch your product. Let them find a winner. If the 2 teams can agree on it and the coach is fine with it, then why should the NCAA want to, ruin the fun, when they have nothing to do with it? So,
Bruce, what are your thoughts? Can we just have the shootout for fun? Are you against fun? Bruce is against fun. You're against fun, aren't you, Bruce? Shootouts can be fun, especially when they're meaningless.
No, I'm not against.
Especially when they don't count towards the standings. I feel like then you can go do trick shots.
Shootouts are hideous. I think they're.
No, you don't even want to watch a shootout.
So here's what I think.
Go ahead, Bruce.
If that's what everybody wants to do, I'm fine with it. But to me, we talk about, you already talked about, let's not confuse the fans. Let's not confuse the fans. I remember back in the day when they were allowed after non-conference games, and you had to ask, are we having a shootout if this game ends in a tie? Because you never really knew for sure. Depending on the opponent, if it was a road game, what that coach wants to do and what Scott wants to do a particular weekend. And sometimes it was different. It has to be universal. I don't care if it means nothing. That's fine. But it has to be universal. And Right now, it's universal. We all know what the rules are. It's easier to communicate. If we want to have shootouts that mean nothing, that's fine. But then everybody's got to do it. Everyone's got to be on board. None of this. We're not going to do one tonight because we don't feel like it.
I'd agree with you on that, Bruce. I think you got to simplify it. I think it's weird right now that a conference game goes to a shootout after 3-on-3, but a non-conference game doesn't. And I think that can be confusing to fans. Again, sometimes I feel like in those non-conference shootouts, when everyone knows there's not a conference point or anything on the line, sometimes guys get creative and interesting, and you see some fun stuff. I like Zach's idea of getting creative. Maybe we can get each team can have an alumni on hand to take the shootout for them. Bulldogs can get Alex Iafallo back there. He was murderous in shootouts. Derek Plant. I want to see Derek Plant go out there after a game in a non-conference game and do a shootout. That might be unfair having him on the bench there. No offense to Krause. We can let Krause take a shot too.
Wait till TJ Oshie retires and North Dakota can book him every weekend.
Jason Garrison's pretty good on breakaways too. Again, Bulldogs have the coaching staff to win coaching staff shootouts if we want to go there.
That'd be fun. The crowd would like that.
I like Zach is on to something. Zach is on to something. Non-conference games, alumni / coach shootouts. Have the coaches lace up the skates, go out there and take shots against each other. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. We had math. We had creative thinking. It was a good episode of the Bulldog Insider podcast this week. Thanks to Bruce and Zach for joining me again. The podcast comes out every Thursday, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe and rate us. For more Bulldogs hockey coverage, visit therinklive.com and DuluthNewsTribune.com. We mentioned, Zach, you have the women's games against Ohio State on My 9. Bruce, this is a listen to the radio weekend for Bulldog fans, isn't it? As the games are streaming on Flow Hockey TV, which was not a good experience for Bulldog fans earlier this season. How can they, while watching Zach on My 9, also maybe stream and listen to you as well?
With Zach muted, it's the best way to listen to him. We've got 610 AM, 103.9 FM, KDAL, online at KDAL610.com. You can listen via the KDAL app. 5 o'clock coverage, 5:30 face-offs, both nights from Marquette, Michigan. And then we're going to drive back and have no issues with snowman.
All right. Thanks to our sponsor, Essentia Health, for their continued support of the Bulldog Insider podcast. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening.